Hello, my dear children. Welcome to your virtual classroom at S.U.M.I Heroes Network, the official YouTube channel of S.U.M.I. Today I'll be taking your second language, that is your Group B English class. And I'll be starting from the poetry section. So today let me start with the first poem, that is On Killing a Tree by Jeev Patel. This poem has different levels of interpretation. And one level of interpretation is the surface meaning. Initially, when you begin reading the poem, it gives you the impression that it's a direct satire on man. So the poet is reminding you of your barbaric act of cutting down a tree. Here the tree is presented as something nice, something good. So when you cut down a tree, the poet seems to be angry at you. And so he motivates you to cut down a tree, but his motivation works negatively on your mind. The tone is such that he seems to be angry. And this approach has a particular term for it. It's called reverse psychology. Some of you may have heard of this term, reverse psychology, but let me explain what this reverse psychology is. Reverse Now, imagine you have a friend who is a smoker, and since he is not going to give up his habit of smoking, you become angry at him. So you motivate him to carry on with his smoking, and you tell him smoking is very good. Okay? But then you start reminding him of the effects of smoking, and you tell him it's going to affect his lungs, and probably he's going to suffer from a lung cancer, and at the most he is going to die. But death is not a big deal. Okay, so by this approach you are able to instill that fear in his mind, and sometimes it really works. So in the same manner, here also in the poem, the poet is angry at you, and so he is motivating you to cut down a tree. He says, come to me and I'll teach you the entire process of how you can wipe out the trees from this world. Okay, I'll show you how it is done. So this is one level of interpretation. There is another level where the tree is presented as something evil. Tree has been stamped as someone like a corrupt leader who has been thriving upon the wealth of the other people. So the tree is sucking up nutrients from the surface of the earth, and it's been surviving like this for so many years. So it's not a simple task. If you simply cut the bark of a tree, it's not going to die. Okay, so this is another level of interpretation. Moreover, you will find there is a strong imagery of a mother and a child. Nature is the mother and the tree is the child, and tree is going to have the better off of these attacks because it's been backed by its mother. The healing touch of nature always comes to the rescue of the tree. So simply by cutting at the bark or stabbing at the bark, you cannot expect a tree to die. It will heal itself. See this word feeding. It almost sounds like a breastfeeding. So the mother is always taking care of her child. So these are some of the many points that you should keep in mind before reading out this poem. Now let me go back to the life of the poet. Jeev Patel was born in Mumbai on 18th of August 1940. He began his career as a medical officer at the primary health center in Gujarat. Later on, he became a medical practitioner at the Mumbai Central Hospital. And at some point in his life, he also tried his hand at paintings, and some of his paintings have been featured at various art galleries in Mumbai. And as a poet, he has written poems like Mumbai, How Do You Withstand, Body, and so on. And as a playwright, he has written Princess, Sabaksa, Master Bayram, etc. Also remember that his writings reflect the contemporary realities, but with a touch of irony. And him being a doctor, he always seems to be emphasizing the frailty and weakness of the human body. And presently, he is a practicing physician in the Central Hospital in Mumbai. Let me go to the first stanza. First, I'll read out the whole stanza and then I'll explain line by line. It takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife will do it. It has grown slowly, consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, observing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. So in the first line, the poet says, it takes so much more time than you think to kill a tree. It's not going to happen in a day or two, or even weeks, but it takes years of patience for you to finally kill a tree. And this word, kill, is an example of personification. The poet says the tree is being killed, and he does not say the tree is being destroyed or dismantled. And you can only kill something that has a life. Okay, so the very habit, the killing habit of man has been referred here. So if you really want to kill a tree completely, you have to be patient. It takes so much more time. And it's not going to do it with a simple jab of the knife. Jab means stabbing. So you cannot simply stab at the bark or cut the bark and expect a tree to die. It's not going to happen. Why? Because it has grown slowly, consuming the earth. The growing process of the tree is very slow. So apparently it takes much more time to die as well. And this particular word, consume, has got different connotations. One of them is, of course, it's been thriving upon the nutrients of the earth. It's been sucking the different nutrients from the earth. On a deeper level, it refers to a person who is thriving like a parasite, who's been consuming the wealth of the other people. And he says such things or such people, such attitudes must be removed from the society. Rising out of it, feeding upon its crust. Crust is the hard part of the surface of the earth. So it's been feeding upon the crust. Okay, feeding, as I told you in my introduction, this feeding means it's been sucking nutrients from the earth and it's been surviving like this. And this particular area here, you see these things, light, air, water, these are different elements of nature. Okay, light, air, water, fire. So all these are different elements of nature, and the earth has grown consuming these elements. So it's not easy to kill a tree because it represents one of the elements. Okay, it's not easy to simply destroy one of the elements. And the last line, out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. Leprous hide. Hide is a skin. Leprous means the skin of a leper. Okay, leprosy is a disease. So being a doctor, he is referring to some of the diseases, and tree here has been portrayed as something like a disease, So the very act of cutting a tree is a very, very celebrated act, and it needs a skilled hand and a precision of a surgeon to remove this tumor. Okay, so tree is presented negatively, this tumor must be wiped out from the society, and this tree here is symbolic of all the evil deeds of man. Okay, so sprouting means cropping up, coming up. So from that, if you leave a opening, if you leave a small opening, and then it will again come back to life. So you should make sure that those things do not return to this world. Its growing is not a gradual, not a fast process, but it's a gradual, slow process, and so it has taken so much time to grow, so it will take more time to die as well. And it has consumed the different elements of the earth and different elements of nature, different nutrients from the earth. So it's not a very simple task killing a tree. Okay, now let's go to the second stanza. So hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs. Miniature boughs, which if unchecked will expand again to former size. So these words, hack and chop. Hack means to cut the tree with a sharp weapon like an axe, and chopping means to cut it into small pieces. So if you hack and chop, this is not going to get the job done. Okay, not so much pain will do it. You have to work harder than that, because the bleeding bark will heal. Bleeding means shedding blood. So the tree has a tendency to come back to life, because the nature provides the tree with a healing touch. Okay, and even if you separate the main branch from the roots, and from close to the ground where the root is, small green twigs will appear. Twigs is a very, very tender, small branches. Okay, so those twigs will start to appear from the roots. Okay, miniature boughs, again small branches, which if unchecked will expand again to form a size. If you untrim those branches, if you let it grow like that, it will again slowly grow back to the former size. So you need to be very, very aggressive if you want to kill a tree. Merely scratching or stabbing at the bark won't get the tree killed. Okay, so you have to be very, very aggressive. That's what these words hack and chop suggests. Okay, you have to show aggression if you want to kill a tree. Okay, but in spite of that, tree always has a tendency to fight back and has the better off of these attacks. The image that this stanza reflects always reminds me of that poem. The poem is the Phoenix. It's called the Phoenix. It's an anonymous Old English poem where there is a mythical bird which after its death, its body burns, and from the ashes will rise a new phoenix again. So the death and rebirth cycle is portrayed in that poem. Okay, so here also that cycle is reflected. You know, if the winter has come, the spring cannot be far behind. So that idea is there, and the tree will always come back to life. Okay, the nature provides the healing touch. So this is the second stanza. Now let's move to the third stanza. This is the third stanza. No, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied, and pulled out, snapped out, or pulled out entirely. Out from the earth cave, and the strength of the tree exposed. The source, white and wet, the most sensitive, hidden for years inside the earth. Here the poet is telling you, you are attacking the tree in the wrong place. If you really want to kill a tree, you should not go for the bark of the tree, but you should go after the root. So if you want to kill a person, you should not go after the hands and feet, but you should go after the heart. Okay, if the heart is destroyed, the person is going to die. So similarly here with the tree, the root has to be pulled out, because root is the heart of the tree. It has to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. Anchoring here means the tree is held tightly with the earth by the roots. Okay, as the ship is tied to the ground with the anchor, so is the tree tightly held with the earth by the roots. And the roots of the tree has to be roped, because you cannot pull it out with your hands. It has to be roped and it has to be pulled out, and you have to use such a force to pull out the roots, it almost creates a snapping sound. Okay, it has to be snapped out. Snapped out here means separating the roots from the earth. Okay, or pulled out entirely. The root has to be taken out of the earth entirely, out from the earth cave. Earth here has been referred to as the cave, and cave is a metaphor which represents our subconscious mind, which nurtures all the violence, all the negative, evil thoughts. So that subconscious mind is the reference here. And then when you pull out the roots, the strength of the tree can be seen. The real strength of the tree lies in the roots. The source, white and wet. If you do not know the source of an entity, it's hard to kill that entity. Okay, so you have to know the source of origin of the tree. The most sensitive, hidden for years inside the earth. The root is obviously the sensitive part of the tree, because root is supposed to be the heart of the tree, and it's hidden for years inside the earth. Now let's go to the last stanza. Then the matter of scorching and choking in the sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and it is done. So now the most of the work has been done. Once you take out the roots out of the earth, then majority of the work is done. Only the formalities remains now. And what are those formalities? Of scorching and choking in the sun and the air. Okay, it has to be dried in the sun so that it starts to suffocate. Now the irony here is that the same sun which gives nutrients to the tree is now choking and suffocating the roots of the same tree. So the scorching and choking in the sun, drying up in the sun, drying up in the extreme heat will kill the roots. Okay, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and then it is done. Now slowly when the root starts burning with the heat, then it turns brown and it becomes harder and it starts to twist. The root is left exposed to the sun. It becomes seasoned after it has been burned by the heat of the sun, and then all the moisture that was left on the roots, the wet part, is now gone. It becomes dry and it starts to wither, and then it is done. The task is accomplished. With that, we have come to the end of today's lesson. I hope you all are keeping safe and doing your studies well at home. We'll meet again in the next class.